6, 10.
So he's saying like right here, school year.
And that's,
This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
how many pieces
So
are
he's
there?
saying 60 would be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. So he's saying that 60
What do you think?
is the same thing as 6 tenths. Do you agree or disagree with that?
So you have one too many? So when you revise this, are your spaces going to be bigger or smaller if you have one too many spaces? They're going to be bigger. Okay. How's your partitioning going, Yaxie?
Sure.
What did you notice? You did it into 6s too? You know, Zoe just did that same thing. Zoe, why don't you tell her what you noticed about the size of your pieces?
I think they're going to be so that already right now.
Did you hear that, Yaxie? She said she also partitioned her number into 6 pieces instead of 5. So she said, I think my pieces are going to be a little bit bigger than they were last time.
Well, now because I forgot to pretend that I was in America.
Oh.
So 3, 4, 5.
So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. I wonder if Jaxie's running into that same thing. Why don't you tell her what you noticed?
Well, here you told me that the line that was already there isn't there, and I forgot to, so I counted 6 pieces instead of 5. So it said that this is
Do you know why you didn't pretend like that line's not even there? Zoe knows, so if you don't know, you can ask your partner. Well, what was this number line when you first got it? What was it partitioned into? It was partitioned into fourths, so this was one of those partitions for fourths. But is that going to help us partition the whole thing into tenths? No. So when we're partitioning it into tenths, we're making other lines on there, so we're kind of ignoring this line, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it looks like you have this half partitioned, and then you're going to partition this half? Okay. And Zoe, or Yaxie, you're still working on partitioning that first half into 5 equal pieces? Okay. That's an interesting strategy. I bet that's going to help you place your decimals that you were reading in 8/10 on there.
It's getting a little bit more difficult for them when it's especially like trying to think of that 1/4. Like this group had struggled well. They had a 1/4 and they thought it was 4/10. But it didn't help them. They took the cards back out. So between the two of them, they were able to talk, but it's hard to get them to slow down.
What group is that?
So that it was hard to get them to slow down and explain their thinking with why 1/4 wasn't 4/10. Because at first they both agreed, like, yeah, it's 4/10. But what would that look like? And how would you think about that when you think about it like money? And then they realized they were able to understand that's 2 strips and then 5 squares. So they were able to think of it that way.
Good.
Yeah, so at least they were able to use it and they got the cards out of it.
With Angel and they hadn't started anything. They wanted to do first, and so we started with the half, which would be easiest to do first, the half, and then they thought about the 3/4. They wanted to do 1/4, but it was not right, so then 3/4. And Angel said he wasn't listening, and Kaden wasn't in here when Randall was thinking about money. So as soon as Randall came back and we borrowed him for a minute, and he came and explained it to Kaden, and he still had a difficult time reading the decimals, and so he borrowed.
Which one?
He did. Okay. He was trying to do that, but then he left to go with the fraction group for Mrs. Ward. But so he borrowed. He didn't have the fraction cards done, and even the ones that were done didn't have he didn't write the decimals on them, so he borrowed. And those helped him to see, okay, there's 5 pieces shaded in here out of 10. How would you read that 5 times? and then we came up with a plan for ones he was going to put on next. And with this one here, they were partitioned their number line into 10s, but it made it really difficult with because it's partitioned into 4ths. And so even when they started with just 1/2, and they were going to partition that half into 5ths, but then it made them think that they had six pieces. So then we talked about how we have to ignore that one, the one that's already on there, if they're going to partition it into 10s. So that's something that I didn't anticipate.
I was wondering this. Yeah, and I wish I would have addressed that because I was thinking that might be difficult because even my group, with Linda and Hunter, we're kind of like, well, we're trying to do 10s. Can we just erase this 4th? Can we just erase this line? And so we used to, about 10s to help you because then they were able to see 3 10s would be a little bit bigger than 25 and 2 10s would be a little bit smaller. So once they were able to use that when they thought about 10s. But the impressive thing was Skylia and Cruz right away when they had the 7500 and the 710s. At first she got 710s was bigger, and then when she got out the card she was able to say, she was kind of confused for a second, and then when she really started thinking about that, she's like, oh no, so this one has 5 extra squares. And then they were able to put the 710s on, so they didn't partition it into 10s, but they realized 5 7500s, 710s is going to be a little bit smaller. Oh, so then 610s would go right here. And then Cruz knew right away that 610s and 6000s were equivalent, and Skylia were able to tell you that if they were on the same line, that meant that they were equivalent. But at first she was a little confused that 610s and 6000s were the same. But Cruz said, oh, well, there's 10 squares in each strip. So then that's 60 squares, that's like 6 strips. And then she agreed with them and figured that out. But that was interesting, though, that how they used the other decimals with the once they did the 4ths and that they were able to use that to help them. They didn't necessarily start off partitioning the number line, but they were able to use what was bigger or smaller to help them to figure that out.
Did you find the groups that I was at, they weren't to a point where they had even started from these ones? Did you find a group that was?
They did, when they did the 7500, they were a little confused at first. They just started finding a bunch of equivalent fractions, which I noticed.
Well, and is this the one that you were saying that Cruz was explaining? So that might be a good group to explain the 610s and the 6000s.
Yes, because at first they were confused, and I was wondering if that would happen. That's why I tried to take it back to hundreds with the engagement, because he was just doubling and finding equivalent fractions, so they had a ton of fractions on there and more fractions. And so then we took it back like, no, you have to use these decimals in fractions. But then they were able to do that. I mean, a little bit of help with prompting. But then I did stay because they were like, hey, so next we can do 7/10. Oh, and then 6/10 will go here. So then since they got to that one, I was like, so where'd you put 1600 at? And Cruz, I think, understood it a little bit more than Skylia, but then she kind of came on board and agreed that she was going first. And I was like, oh, this means that they're all equivalent. They're all, because he tried to say that 3/4 and 7500 were not the same. And then she was able to relate it back to, well, this is 3/4, that's 75 cents, that's 4/4. So really between the two of them, they had a lot of the knowledge together.
That was really powerful for Randall to share that during the engagement.
I know, and he shouted out, like, just kind of whisper shouted it out, and I heard it, that's what I was like, wait, Randall, what did she say? And I really think that helps. So,
good. I also wanted to touch base with when you met with you about this. I haven't either, I haven't got to Sammy and Stacy either, so I wanted to touch base with them. But we probably don't have time.
Probably not. But I could try to grab them again tomorrow. But I did want Skylia and Cruz to share with what they discovered about them. I still think, I think some kids like Cruz are really seeing, okay, this is my 6 strips, and there's 10 squares in each strip, so I know 6 squares. And I think like Skylia, once he explained that to her,